as you can see, I'm in a car. My name is Lilette, and I'm the producer for Lords of Nysera, the TRPG. And we've got Tony, who is a driver, so he can't look at the camera. In fact, he really, really shouldn't, because we're going almost 70 miles per hour right now. He is the creator and the big brain of Lords of Nysera. He's going to be looking forward quite a bit here, but that's a good thing for us.
I can still talk, I just can't look at the phone because...
Yeah. Because of reasons.
Nor should anyone.
Don't...
Drive safely, everyone.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna try to drown out the outside noise here. It might be a little funky audio-wise. We do apologize. We're traveling to the grandparents right now, and we're gonna go celebrate Christmas Eve over there. Yeah, so we wanted to talk about what goes into making a chapter, a single chapter, one chapter of Lords of Nysera. What does it take? Tony's been working on this for the last 2 sprints. We're currently in sprint number 3, and each sprint is 2 weeks. So that means we're in week 5 out of 6 right now. Yeah. So what are the different things in a chapter, Tony? And make sure you speak kind of loud, because I don't know how much.
Excuse me.
Was
that loud enough?
Yeah, it was good audio check.
Yep.
So what goes into making a chapter, Tony?
Yeah, so there are, I would say, a couple main features in a chapter. And this is going to be a little more technical, like code-wise. So there's the map. The map is the first thing people see, right? It is all tiles, and sometimes I have to add in new tiles, but for the most part, I have a pretty solid set of tiles I use to make an entire map in Lords of Nysera. That's the first thing. The second thing is the units. There are a lot of different types of units, and players usually face armies in Lords of Nysera. They don't fight a little ragtag group of bandits unless it's a side chapter bandit battle.
Or you're in prologue.
Yeah, or it's a prologue, right?
Yeah.
Those are the smallest battles you'll probably encounter in the game. So units are the big, hefty part of each chapter, though, because units mean new weapons and items. They mean new classes, which mean new skills, and they mean new features, such as, in this case, as of recently, the shape-shifting and the firearms. Those are 2 big new features, as well as the spells. So all of that is just in the...
And we're introducing it really slowly, because there is a lot to introduce in Lords of Nysera, and some people have commented on that too, that there's so much content. How do we plan to release it so that it's not completely overwhelming?
Right. And part of it is that, like, some things are related, right? So firearms, for example, they are similar to ranged weapons in that you've already been introduced to them with, say, like Artemir, the archer, right? So you already understand how ranged weapons work. You just, firearms are a different kind of ranged weapon that use a different ammunition. The bombs and whatnot, they are similar in that, like Ania has this healing staff, and she can use that on other people to heal them. Lenoa has these bombs that she can use to throw bombs. They work just like spells in that, you can target areas and they have a range. So you're already familiarized with some things. It's just like, this is a new but slightly different thing I can use that requires a different kind of training. So ideally, by the time you're getting to this point, you're already aware of stuff like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Lots of times too, you are going to see enemies doing something and be like, these druids are changing into animals. Can I do that? And eventually you will, and you'll be able to speak to people who can teach you those things, or you'll get a unit who can just do that, right?
Right. Yeah. Our fellow druids, we just have we just put in wolves and bears, and then I saw Tony drawing up a panther even.
Yep.
So those are the 3 different kind of animal shape-shifting or forms that our druids can turn into. And we have a couple characters who are druids that you can recruit eventually. So yeah, that'll be fun.
Yep.
So, okay, what else goes into a chapter, Tony?
Yeah,
so
so
we
the
talked
next-
about like the spell, like the features or game mechanics that go into the game.
Yeah, and that's still mostly based on units, right? That's still that's a unit-based aspect. The next thing is the events and scenes.
Right, so the talking, like the
Yeah.
dialogue, the characters talking to each other,
Yep.
and then even the bonds too. That's kind of part of it as well, because
Yeah, and those are all wrapped in the same thing. And so events are more or less like, there's a situation in the battle that changes, say, the tactics of their enemy. So they might shift from being defensive to aggressive, right? That could be an event. An event might also be reinforcements, where a bunch of new enemies arrive on the map in a big formation, right? So not spawning individually like you would expect in Fire Emblem, but literally a whole force appearing.
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas scenes are unique in that they don't always require an event, or they're not some big thing. So they can be a battle conversation between an enemy and a player. They can be.
So scenes are smaller.
Scenes are smaller
Yeah.
typically.
Scenes are like the cutscenes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But scenes and events are usually tied together sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
if there's an event, it usually has a scene as well. That's kind of how it goes.
Okay.
Yep. And then there's also the objectives. The objectives are a smaller part. Like usually that just comes along with designing the map itself and making sure that there's different objectives to even do. Right?
Well, it's like the small little things, like you need to rout the enemy, or you need to defeat all of the so and so's, or take that fort, or whatever.
Yep,
That's
or
what the
defend-
objectives
yep,
is.
Yeah, or defend a specific unit or protect a village, right? There's all because there's the primary and secondary objectives. So the primary ones, if you fail them, you typically fail the battle, right? The secondary ones are optional, but
Yeah.
typically you want to succeed on those because you get bonus stuff for doing them. Other than that, then the final aspect of making a chapter is playtesting it, right?
Yeah,
Is actually making sure that all these different things that we added in function properly. And that can be kind of crazy sometimes because you might add a feature in and then you try it out with the new AI that you added in, the NPC AI, I mean, and they do not do it in the way that you expect, right? They
Right.
use the spell incorrectly, or sometimes they attack their own units for some reason. There's all these different problems that can arise when you add new stuff in, right?
Well, and we haven't even finished the prologue. Playtesting that, like there's playtesting, it comes in phases, right?
It's
like
the longest part. Like the
It's the
making
longest
it,
part, yeah.
easily the longest part.
Yeah.
Because it takes so long to find out what works and what's fun, right?
And then someone asked, is there an update to the demo? We're on version 12, specifically 1.0.12 right now. So when's the next update going to be?
The next big update is actually going to cover. I think we're ready to include chapter 1 in the
Nice.
in the new demo,
That'll be fun.
because we're kind of figuring out what people like and dislike in the prologue. So we're going to fix that up probably in the next sprint. We're going to start fixing that up, and and then by the end of the next sprint, I'm hoping that we can include a big update to the demo.
So, are we going to fix up the prologue first, or are we just going to go right into releasing the chapter 1?
We're going to do both. So we're
Okay.
gonna fix up the prologue first.
Yeah. And we missed out on Wreck It Wednesday last week because
I was sick.
you were sick, and that's typically when we do work on whatever's visible to the our playtesters. So anything in the demo, that's when we work on it for Wreck It Wednesdays. But Tony was out sick, and I'm still getting trained up with the Game Maker. So that Yep.
But yeah, so the next big update will hopefully include chapter 1. So that would be a pretty significant another playtest phase, right?
Yeah. What can you give us a sneak peek? Like what can people expect in chapter 1?
So chapter 1 is you have a lot more units. So not only do you have more unique units, you get introduced to controlling generic units as well.
Right.
And
Right.
So you will quickly. So like a lot of people struggle with the prologue because you have so few units, right? And you actually face a lot of Thracian raiders, especially if you're playing on hard mode. And so it can feel really punishing with having so few units. Whereas in chapter 1, it's more a case of urgency because you have to protect certain units before they get murked, right? But you have a lot once you've completed that like phase of it where you've defended an area, then it's all about completing the rest of the objectives. And you have a lot of ways to do it because you get introduced to so many more characters. And I'm a little worried that maybe there'll be too many at once and people just like, whoa, there's so many like characters being introduced right now that it might seem a little overwhelming. But hopefully it won't be. I'm hoping that people are, okay with what's going on.
We'll see. I mean, that's what playtesting is for, right? So we'll just see what folks think. And I do get overwhelmed with having way too much stuff introduced. So if you're introducing spells and new units, then that might be like, I can kind of tell that that's probably a lot already. But yeah, we'll see.
But it won't be too much different even than say like the very first Fire Emblem game. I think in the first chapter you get a Pegasus Knight, Marth, 2 Cavaliers, and 3 fighters to start your army off, and a Paladin. So like almost 6 or 7 units in the very first chapter.
I think it just matters on how you introduce them.
Yeah, they are introduced gradually. They're not introduced right away.
Well, not even gradually. Like having the tooltips in there, having like something interactive to guide the players and recommend them things to do. Like for example, I remember playing through Fire Emblem 7 where you are introduced to the Pegasus Knight, and there's this part that is like, oh, they can fly over walls. Why don't you target that one dude who's over this wall? Something like that might help. But anywho, okay, so did we cover everything that goes into making a chapter, Tony?
I guess the only thing I can elaborate a little more on is the scenes, which is it's pretty much the story writing, right? That is all literally like I have to type up what everybody is saying. And that is a lot of work actually. There's lots of just like editing and just spell checking honestly, because I oftentimes I need to redo the system I do it in because it's a little old. But more or less I've always done it in like a spreadsheet. But spreadsheets don't have spell checking, right? Mm-hmm. So I tend to have like errors with these older conversations, and I'm switching more to using like a document editor and then copying them into the format that I need.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's probably the only other thing I would elaborate more on.
Recapping really quick. So we've got, so what goes into a single chapter? There is...
Maps.
Oh, we haven't talked about maps yet.
Yeah, well, the maps are mostly like, so I have tile sets, right? For people who don't know what a tile set is, it's more or less like...
It's like a paintbrush, like...
Yeah, it's a paintbrush, but like it lets you paint out the squares on the map, right? Yeah. It's effectively a room editor. So I make these sheets I make them from scratch, right? I do all the pixel art myself, and then I organize them in the best possible way I can so that when I place them on the map, it's easier. And that takes about a day or so to do because the maps are... So not too bad. It depends on the size of the map and the complexity of it and whether or not I want to add new stuff into it. Such as like anytime there's a new castle, I make sure every castle is kind of unique looking, as long as it's a major one. Yeah. And so sometimes that takes an extra bit of time to draw this nice looking castle and then fit it onto the map somewhere. But for the most part, I can tile out. I've got a lot of cool tools in GameMaker to tile with, and so it doesn't take too long, especially now that I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
But then the maps themselves, so there are a few other little things, right? Like you have to edit certain things in the map that are code-based. For example, like capture points and structures. Those all have extra values that sometimes I have to edit because by default, they will sometimes not have the right team associated with them. So I've had cases where I drop a structure down and then I have units on the I more or less have units attacking their own castles for some reason. And I'm like, oh, it's because I forgot to add the team to that castle. So.
Well, long story short, so we've got maps, we've got
Units.
characters or units, we've got scenes and events, we've got objectives that goes into making the chapter.
And underlying all of that is sprites, right? Like new sprites.
Well, it kind of goes under units.
Yeah. So
it kind of goes under units.
there's just like a lot of artwork that goes into every new chapter.
And how long does each chapter take to make?
That's what we're finding out. For the longest time I had have the freedom to take as long as I needed, but this time we were actually recording how long it takes to make each chapter. And it's roughing out to about a month.
Yeah.
So about a month. Which if we can keep up this pace of doing about a chapter a month, then what we'll eventually do is allow plays testing for previous maps to occur as we're working on new maps. Right?
Yep, and that's the importance of me being onboarded right now. So getting familiarized with how Tony runs things with the in the all of his scripts and such. We're gonna be setting up we're going to be setting up the GitHub for the game so that we can collaborate better too. So I'm excited for that. That's about it.
Also, Adam is working away on the first 7 new tracks of Lords of Nysera. So.
That's right, yeah. So Adam is our music composer. So he's actually, if you look at all of our Feature Fridays, all of the music for those Feature Friday videos are from Adam Bowe. And he made those specifically for Lords of Nysera. So Tony sent over a slide deck to request all of the music for the OST, and he's going to be working on that pretty soon here. He's finishing up another project. Adam Bowe's awesome with working on several different games, and then he's going to be dedicating his time to Lords of Nysera.
Yep. So expect a lot of cool tracks that we get to show off in the next month or so, because he's going to be taking a break obviously over the holidays.
Yep.
But he told me that after the holidays he's going to be cranking out music for us. So it's always a fun experience because I get to listen to all the stuff he does and see what sort of spin he puts on it. And then I sort of get to tell him, okay, well I need it to sound a little more like this, a little more like that, and we get to fine tune it, and then he gives me a remastered final version of it, and it always sounds great. So.
Yeah. So we're really excited for what is to come, and you guys are probably celebrating your holidays already, or working, making that extra cash. So we wish you guys the very best this weekend, and drive safe, travel. We lost you guys for a second.
I am wearing a ugly sweater llama.
Yeah. It's just hiding over there. Okay, that's it. That's all we have for Speaker Friday, or Speaker Sunday. Speaker Friday.
So I guess the last thing we can talk about is where am I at right now in Chapter 3,
Yep.
which is I am working on the scenes and events. They take a lot of time. I have pretty much the intro sequence done for the chapter, so that includes the map where they're talking about what's going on in the next battle, and then that little sequence where all the units are kind of showing up on the map and they're talking about their tactics and the goals and objectives, and then it switches to the preparation phase. So that's what I finished this week. Even though I was sick, I managed to get that done, as well as finish up another feature that I wanted to have done before it. And so what I'm doing probably this week, as soon as it'll be Tuesday. Tuesday I'll be working on the units. So all the unit placement, making sure their equipment and their teams are correct, and their AIs are all their, how they behave and whatnot is correct, and then testing that out and making sure that works. So it'll be pretty much getting to start the battles itself.
Awesome.
Yep.
And that's what we have for you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Yep. See you guys.
Bye.